So my name is Andrea Caburlotto. I'm from the OGS, that is the National Institute of Geography and Applied Geophysics in Italy. And I am managing the Core Logging Lab. That is a lab for the non-destructive analysis on sediment cores. In this talk, I will just introduce you to the Core Logging Lab facilities and the data that we can acquire in this lab without going into much details. And then I will show you just a case study, so where we applied the results of the coming out from this lab. So basically, this lab is joint with the University of Trieste, and it's equipped with a multi-sensor core logger that is offering a non-destructive way to measure with a fully automatic system, and it measures the gamma density, P-wave velocity, and the magnetic susceptibility on sediment cores, both wall core or split core. And the main application are several, like of course the measurement of these three parameters, but of course that you can use for stratigraphic correlations, porosity measurements. You can have out and water content with P-wave and density values. You can create a synthetic seismogram, and then so you can have also a correlation with the seismic data, and you can use this data for course quality control. You can observe the lithological changes, and magnetic susceptibility is a very good indicator of material of heterogeneous origin within the sediment cores, of course, and for stratigraphic correlation and identification and correlation of turbulent events, and as well as for glacial and interglacial events. Okay, so then we have also an imaging system. It's a high resolution camera, can have like 10 to 100 micron pixel size, and this camera is equipped with a set of filters for red, green, and blue. So it means that we can also acquire the red, green, and blue values. So we have a qualitative analysis. This is the pictures. You can have an examples here. And of course, you can also have a quantitative analysis by the RGB colors. So it's good for the correlation. And of course, this is the core photographic archiving, core quality, color analysis, correlation between cores and mineralogy. And then we have the X-ray systems. This cabinet with X-ray, so we don't have to have a specific room for that, and it's very high resolution imaging that coming out. You can have an example here on the right side. So the zoom area is about 20 centimeters. So, and that is very useful for some fields like a geohazard, because you can identify easily fracturing, bedding slumps, and slide deposits. And for the stratigraphic point of view, you can identify the different units and improving the identification and understanding of the different depositional processes. And also we use a lot for the paleoclimatic studies. You can determine the paleocurrent activities and identify the classogenic and ice raft debris deposits, and to study the glacial dynamic. And you can also, you will have an example in a few minutes. You can also identify like floodings on coastal environments. And the important thing is that in most cases, you can see something that otherwise you cannot see on pictures or no visual description or something like this. So it's very useful too. So now I will show you an example. It's a quite recent work with it. It has been published in 2021. It's some sediment cores collected at the Lago Argentino, that is in the South America, in the what is the Perito Moreno. you can see the yellow circle. It is the calving front of the Perito Moreno. So the peculiarity of this glacier is that since 1920, it has been almost stable. It is quite different with regards to the behavior of the other glaciers that are usually retreating. And the second peculiarity of the Perito Moreno glacier is that during the cold season, it advances, and so it will create a dam, nice dam, between the northern part and southern part of the Lago Argentino. So the southern part is Brazo Rico and Brazo Sur, the two arms, let's say, of the southern lake, have been isolated from the superior lakes. And so these are some pictures, so I can explain better than any words these events. So when the Perito Moreno advances, it will reach the other coastal area. And so you have an ice dam between the two lakes. And this event isolated for a certain period the southern and the northern part of this lake, this Lago Argentino. And so because the southern part, the Brazo Rico and Brazo Sur, have not any outflow, so it will cause a lake water level difference between the two sub-lakes, let's say, okay? So they can range from 5 to 23 meters. So, and there are no evidence of this, let's say, outburst for 1936. There are only some dendrological and indirect evidence of the flooding during the ice dam period. And we have the first survey in this area, where you can see the cores collected on land on the coastal area. And thanks to the X-ray, we can see the flood events that have been recorded during this separation of the two lakes, let's say. So we have the first time direct evidence of the flooding of the lakes on the coastal area. Whereas the other part, sediments are just continental material, land material with some debris and slumping. So we cannot work or create a timeline from this material because there is some hiatuses and some material has been washed out, so it's not so easy, but we have at least we can confirm the flood. And during the second survey in 2019, we collected other 10 cores in the lakes in this small inlet. And this is the first time that some studies has been carried out on sediment cores in the lakes. And because our objective was to detect the stratigraphic signatures of the high energy events associated with the water outburst. And you can see in this paper, we just analyze the 3 cores that are the more interesting, but the same pattern. So you see the upper unit is the most recent and is formed from an alternation of cores and mud levels that are reflecting a more energetic depositional setting, whereas then we have erosional surface, and below this there is a quite understood but sedimentary succession. And of course, we have some, we were able to have some calibration, some dating of this sediment. And so this erosional surface has been dated between 324 and 266 year before present. So it means during the during the Little Ice Age. And it was quite important because no events have been recorded before 1936. So then we have evidence that since the Little Ice Age, the last part of the Little Ice Age, we have this water outpush quite periodically. And you can see also from there is more sandy silt in the upper part. And below the erosional surface, we have a hiatus of about 3,200 years. So probably because the sediment was eroded by this water outpush, some small turbidites or something like this. And one peculiarity we observe in almost all the cores is, if you can see my pointer here, this is a very bright layer, and it's very thin and bright layer that is in the picture or on the ice, it's not very clearly visible, but in the X-ray are clearly visible. And so we thought it could be an ash layer, tephra, something like this. And so we decided to run the magnetic susceptibility every millimeters to the thinner layer. And effectively, the magnetic susceptibility confirmed that this is an ash layer. So summing up, so this water outburst occurs semi-periodically every year, more or less. This occurrence before have been documented since 1936, and evidence of previous events have been only indirectly provided by dendrochronology analysis. So with this work, the sediment collected, we provided the first evidence of major erosional events within this sequence was earlier, so around 324, 266 years before present, so during the Little Ice Age. And now we are also working on the ash layers, so we hope we can recognize the provenance of the ash layers, or identify the volcanoes and the eruptions, and maybe correlate it with some other layers or volcanoes sediments on land, so to have more information about the evolution of this particular phenomenon that we have here in this area. Yes, that's it from my side. Yes, and so thank you.